Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Get Good. My name is Ian Young. Today we are talking about one of our top volunteers. In fact, we would be interviewing Victoria, one of RCD's volunteers, and just basically see how she's doing and what she's been doing. And as usual, we will start at 1 o'clock, and please prepare all your questions and type that in chat. And for those of you who are watching a recording of this, you can fast forward to the 5-minute mark. And remember to like our videos and subscribe to our channel. We will be back in about 4 minutes. Okay, and we are starting now. Hey, Victoria, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ian. How about you?
Pretty good. Thanks for coming on today. And today we are going to actually ask you some questions about volunteering, like how you got started and what have you been up to. Because I think in the past year, it's been very, very crazy for us, and especially volunteers who are looking to gain more experience and whatnot. So folks, we have Victoria joining us today live at the RCD studio. And in fact, in this room right now, we have a few other people in this room. Everybody here is a volunteer. That's pretty amazing. Or once was a volunteer, including myself. So I can see the connection here. All right, so Victoria, chat will ask questions as well. So from time to time, we'll jump back onto chat. But I have my first sets of questions. Are we ready for it?
We are, Ian. We're ready.
Awesome. All right, so maybe first tell our viewers how you're connected with RCD.
Yeah, so I first started basically walking through Lansdowne with my mom and dad, and I saw the sign RCD, and I was curious about, I hadn't really paid attention to Richmond Center for Disabilities before. And so my mom prompted me, may as well just ask and see if they could use any help. And that's why I sent in my name only, my name and my contact, and I got reached out by the admin and was offered an interview with Ian. And at the time, Ian was trying to find out a little bit about my background. I still remember the interview quite clearly. It was about a year ago. And I was kind of nervous about the interview because the position was something that seemed a little bit foreign. So it was co-hosting at the time, an exercise class. And because it was on Zoom, I didn't really feel super comfortable, but Ian mentioned that he would be supervising, he would make sure everything is guided, and that there would be a smooth transition. So I was quite excited at the sound of that.
If you ask any of our participants during the last year's exercise class, they probably all say that you've been doing this forever because you're so smooth at the conducting and hosting the exercise class, and you're just so good at engaging people at a camera level, because through Zoom you're only kind of reaching out to the other side through a camera. It's very different than when you're doing this in person, and I think everybody will say that my Victoria did a fantastic job, and thank you for doing that. Now Victoria, by the way, did you say you want to have your mask on or off? Up to you.
Have it half on
half
to
on,
promote
okay.
mask wearing.
Okay.
Have it half on.
Sure. All right, sounds good. Now, what about what have you been up to lately? Like, I know from what I'm hearing from you, you've been nonstop going here and there doing different kinds of volunteering. So what have you been working on?
So outside of school, throughout the summer, I'm a full-time student. So I'm going, taking my kinesiology degree at UBC, finishing that up hopefully. So other than school, I like to fill my time up, just not to annoy my parents. So just to get out of the house. And so a couple of things that's on the plate right now are 2 research positions. So one is with active aging, and that's focused on hip health and mobility, long-term care for older adults. I was a care aide before, and so I wanted to focus a bit more on research in long-term care, specifically the one-site policy. The second research position is with SCIRE, Spinal Cord Injury Research Rehab Program, and that was affiliated with me volunteering at a spinal cord injury research gym. So all the participants there have free access to an accessible gym, and I really loved volunteering there, and so I want to dig a bit further in the research behind spinal cord injury. And so those are my 2 research positions, which I really love. And of course, volunteering side, RCD takes precedence. But aside from RCD, again, the spinal cord injury gym, and also head coach with Special Olympics. And so I've been really enjoying my time at a couple of these places.
Wow, it sounds like you have 50 hours in your day. Like I don't know how I don't know how you can do so much, at least in a week, right? It seems like you packed your week jam-packed with different kinds of activities and volunteering, right? That's really amazing. And I remember one time you were so dedicated that you were on vacation, and then I'm like, it's a Friday, let's do the exercise class on here's Victoria, and then she's connecting with us from, was it Alberta?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Let's talk about how the technology impacted volunteering, at least from your perspective.
Yeah, I think because I was in Edmonton, I was visiting family at the time. The connection really was quite tricky, and I honestly was a little bit late to the exercise class because I was finding it very difficult. I was staying at my aunt's place. She has very poor reception. She has the bunny ears, if any of you still remember those. So it was quite tough. We were in the basement. There was a heat wave. But I was like, I really want to join this exercise class. I need to get my own workout in, that's for sure. And so, yeah, it was definitely technology's application was that it was really counting down to the last second almost. I didn't want to be any more late. And so it really helped to have a fully charged laptop. And trying to access the internet was a challenge, but it got through. So I'm just very thankful for the technology that, you know, is afforded to me.
That was good because I was kind of worried because you're usually not late, right?
Yes.
So like a couple of minutes in, I'm like, oh, where's Victoria? But, you know, you showed up very last second, and then the gang, I was just showing a picture of our typical Zoom class, and the gang was like asking, where's Victoria? Is she coming? And you know how our folks, they're also very talkative, right? And then they're just asking out if you're okay and stuff like that. But thank you for being so involved, even volunteering when you're all the way in Alberta. That's excellent. Now, do you remember how long you've been volunteering with us?
I think a little less than a year so far. Yeah, it doesn't feel like it. It definitely feels like yesterday that I did the interview with you.
You know, I think you were the very first person that I interviewed during the lockdown.
Wow.
I did not have that many volunteers coming to our city wanting to volunteer.
Right.
I think at that time, everybody were like, let's stay home because, you know, that's the public health order. Let's reduce as much involvement in the community as much as we can. And you were actually one of the probably 4 other people inquired. Like back then, our city had a lot of volunteers, like pre-pandemic time. We're talking about every month we get like 10 applications and so on. And wow. we just have a lot of applications to go through. But during that entire couple of months during the beginning of the lockdown, we're talking about literally like 5 applications.
Yeah.
That was it. But so I'm very glad that I actually met you, and you stay on for so long. Thank you very much. And yes, the exercise class won't be the same without you. Now, also I would like to take this chance to mention another volunteer because Victoria in the beginning co-hosted with another volunteer named Candy, and then the two of them split the class into like 30-minute portion, in total 1 hour. So Victoria, I think, in charge of the second half, and Candy was in charge of the first half. Did that work out okay, like from your perspective as a volunteer?
I think so. I mean, Candy's such a spectacular person and volunteer, and so it was amazing to volunteer next to her, and also for yourself as well under your guidance. I did find the challenge was the timing and the difference in delivery mode. I think the two of us are a little bit different in energy and different in how we deliver and communicate. But I think that was good actually, so that the participants had, a little bit of break in between their workout. And so throughout, when I was hosting alone, I tried to then implement a bit of a break so that, I could take over as Candy for a bit and then as Victoria.
Yeah, that was, I think that synergy was really good. So, part of the challenging aspect of Zoom is, For the first couple of minutes, yeah, people are really engaged. After 15 minutes, those who aren't asleep, they're still engaged. But after half an hour, the attention span is kind of, low. And at that point, that's when you guys switch. And I think that woke our participants up and, re-energized them. All right, now it's Victoria's turn. Let's do it. Right, that kind of thing. I think it worked out really, really well.
Yeah,
and thank you.
sure.
Thank you for having such wonderful dynamics. Do we have any questions from chat? Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, so June has the question is what is Victoria's end goal after school and what would she like to be after volunteering at school?
Okay, so let me just repeat this question. June asks, what is Victoria's end goal? And sorry, what's the second part? End goal?
What would she like to do after all this volunteering at school?
Oh, what would you like to do after all this volunteering?
Yeah, thank you for the question, June. Hey, June. Really glad to see you at the exercise classes and love to see you participating. To answer your question, what is my end goal after this 4-year endeavor is to work in the rehab sector. Specifically, I'm interested in working with older adults and folks with disabilities. I've gotten really close with the disability community, and I think it's just so rewarding to be around people that are very motivated to rehab or to get stronger, to get moving. I find that really fulfilling. I think that that's one way I can use my skills and my knowledge to better practice. And in terms of my trajectories after all this volunteering and work, specifically I'm looking towards physiotherapy, and either in the sports rehab or in the geriatrics sector. So that's what I'm thinking about right now.
Excellent. Thank you. Any more questions?
Yes.
Okay.
So Ella has a question that Victoria, how do you keep participants to engage during the class, and how would you do to handle those who are not focused or cooperating?
Okay, so Ella's question is on how do you keep our participant motivated in class, and how do you get them to do the things that you want them to do on camera or on Zoom?
And was it Ella?
That was from Ella.
Okay. Hey, Ella. Thank you for your question. Really appreciate it. In terms of getting participants motivated, I think, the participants that we're so lucky to have, they themselves are more motivated than me often, and they are pushing their boundaries. They are definitely, when I'm doing arm circles and I'm feeling a bit tired, I just look towards the camera and I see 5, 6, 7, 8 participants going at turbo speed. And so there's really not much that I have to do to motivate the participants. It's more so a mutual guidance, I think. And all I have to do is count down, and usually they do more than however many I counted. So it's a very fun time. I think with other organizations, I have found that motivation is difficult, especially online. I think that the part where motivation becomes challenging is not during the session, but rather coming to the session. And so I think that requires, the admin side, a promotion, that requires a lot of work behind the scenes. But once participants are in my hands, they are so enthusiastic, they're so excited. So I get the easy life, Ian and the admin team get the more difficult and challenging part.
Speaking of the involvement, or at least getting them to the Zoom class, I do notice that there's a lot more newer faces that are joining just specifically for exercise class. So there's a couple of participants that I usually don't see them a lot in other activities, but they do just come in to join specifically for the exercise class. So Victoria, you're definitely doing something right. Thank you. All right, so on to a question that I have is related to Zoom, of course. What is the most challenging aspect of hosting a Zoom activity?
I think especially there are multiple challenges, but I think especially because of the nature of this Zoom class, which is exercise, I think for myself, it is safety. I cannot see the participants, below their chest level, and some of the participants, from my understanding, are using wheelchairs. And I think because all of the exercises are upper body, I feel a little bit more comfortable. But especially starting out, I was very reluctant to guide exercises that are a bit more larger in movement, because participants did give me feedback that balance was a challenge or coordination was a challenge. And I was quite reluctant because I could not help them if they had tripped or fallen. And so safety definitely was the main concern for me.
Absolutely. Sometimes when our participants, they get so involved, their movement becomes larger and larger, and then we worry that they may hurt themselves, right? And then we're all the way from here, right? It's like hard to reach out, and like not like my hands can reach through the computer and stop them, right? So these are one of the things that we need to keep an eye on. And for our class, exercise class, it's usually about 10-15 people, right? And my question actually is like, how do you keep an eye on all these different people while you're conducting Zoom? Like, do you have them all on your screen as you're conducting it?
Yes, so I discovered gallery view. And that was quite a blessing because I could see all of your lovely faces all at once. And it really helped, especially for movement, because if I saw you are turning the way that you're supposed to, or perhaps incorrectly, I could correct right away. Not to pinpoint anybody out, but just for proper movement and proper dynamics, I can see it quite clearly who's doing the movement correctly or incorrectly. So that really helps gallery view.
Yeah. For those who are not too familiar with Zoom, usually during our sessions, such as the exercise class, I would spotlight Victoria's screen so that on the participant side, they only see Victoria. But from the instructor's point of view, such as from Victoria's side and from my side, we put up the gallery view so that we see all the individuals that are participating. So on their end, they only see one person, but from our end, we see everybody. So that's one of the things that you can also think of, is that to use the gallery view to see what other people are doing too. So that's also one of the things you can do on Zoom. Very good. Do we have questions? Okay. Then I have a couple of questions here relating to the advantage of hosting a session on Zoom. Do you see an advantage of hosting on Zoom, Victoria?
100%, yes. Especially as a full-time student, it's really difficult to commute for me. I drive, thankfully, but still, a lot of my activities are downtown, Vancouver, or at the university at UBC. And so it takes a long time just to get on the road or even to get in the car. Whereas the convenience of Zoom, doing it at home, doing it in my own bedroom, making sure I have Wi-Fi, and that's basically all, and clothes on, and that's all I need. It's quite convenient, and I quite appreciate it.
Yeah, and you can even do it from Alberta when you're having your vacation.
Deep Cove.
Deep Cove. Right, you're Deep Cove. That's amazing, Victoria. Now, did you learn anything new while volunteering with us? I always forget that, you're actually relatively new in terms of a volunteer, but because I see you so often, I see you every week, very often I just thought, oh yeah, like Victoria's been volunteering here a lot. Then I just realized, no, it's just been a year, right? So for in terms of volunteering, that's relatively new. But so did you learn anything new while you're with us?
Oh, for sure. There's too many to choose from, but I think the top three would be, the first one would be participant interaction while on Zoom. I sourced this learning from when I am participating on Zoom classes. I enjoy exercise classes on Zoom, but I often find that there's a lack of interaction between instructor and participants. What I learned through my experiences at exercise class is that if I name call in a good way, that Ian's doing great, that participants are a lot more receptive to that, positive reinforcement.
Yep.
And also that it keeps me on tabs to see, okay, who's coming to class and who's doing a wonderful job. They always are, all of the participants. So if I have not called your name, it's just I haven't gotten there. The second thing that I think I've learned is making sure that participants are not going too far past boundaries, physical boundaries, or even at that time, capability boundaries. So over this year, I've seen some participants from beginning till now, and I don't even have to say breathe while you exercise or tight core, shoulders down. They already are doing that. Some of the new participants, when they come on, I am sort of reiterating the cues, but I have found that to work within participants' boundaries is really important, to be cognizant of that, to respect that they're at a certain physical or at a certain capability level, and that could increase over time, but we just need some time and some practice. And I think the third aspect, which has been quite rewarding, is actually seeing the participants. I don't know if this is a learning, but I've learned that even if we're not doing something crazy out there, we're doing weekly exercise classes, but I just find it such a joy to see the same participants and some new ones as well every week. It's quite a delight. I can catch up a little bit on what they've been doing that week, and it's really a bit of a social time for me as well.
It's amazing. Yeah. It's really amazing to have you, Victoria. So that's why you're calling our members by the name. It's like, hey, Ian, great job. Wow. Point number one is that they also get to engage. They actually pay more attention to you too, right? And then especially when you're commenting that, they're doing something correctly, that's a super nice thing to hear. So that's excellent. And wow, I did not know that you learned so much from volunteering here with us. That's really, really good. And I mean, volunteering, for folks out there who are planning on volunteering, it's really a path that you establish for yourself. What you gain is for yourself. It's not like, I always see people, they're doing some volunteering hours just to satisfy the needs for schools, right? I really don't think that was the idea. Like, what you learn from volunteering is entirely for yourself. So keep volunteering, even if you've achieved your hours at school, keep on doing it, and you can probably keep learning things that are new.
For sure.
Questions? All right. Oh, you have a question. Let's hear.
I have a question for Victoria. Actually, in my experience, making new friends is one of the big perks of being volunteering, especially when you hang out with them in person. All things come really naturally. But for you, it's kind of challenging, right? So you're doing everything remotely. So how do you make friends with volunteers or with your participants? Okay.
So the question from Daryl is mainly about making friends, because making friends during volunteering is a big part of it. So for you, you're kind of conducting the class, maybe with one other volunteer, and you have all the participants. How do you get that part of making friends and putting that in your volunteering experience?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Daryl, for the question. I think that making friends initially was not one of my goals coming into volunteering, but I found that this past half year has definitely been actually quite simple because of the participants that I'm working with. They're so easy to talk to. They're so kind and so generous. If I go a bit over time, they never complain. If I push them a little bit harder through the exercise classes, they just keep pushing through. And for myself, I find that friends are there to empower one another. They don't necessarily have to look identical or talk the same way or think the same way. But for me, I think that friends are there to uplift one another and be encouraging. And that's why I consider every one of the participants one of my friends. And if it's okay, I'd love to be their friend as well. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Like, I also have the same feeling when I work with our participants so much that, all of a sudden they're just no longer just another participant or just another member. You have that connection where, hey, we can be friends, right? And then you started to do something more, like do something that's beyond RCD. So that's something that's good that can come out from volunteering as well. Very cool. Questions?
So June is wondering, have Victoria encountered anyone or any situations disruptive during the session, and then how do you handle that? No need to mention anything.
Have you experienced any disruption in our classes, and how did you handle that?
I think, especially with Zoom, it's very no participants, so don't worry, no name calling. All the participants are wonderful, so they would never be disruptive. But I do think that with Zoom, it often, at least maybe my computer, picks up a lot of noise. And I can't say for the participants, but even for myself, the background noise can be quite disruptive. Sometimes I'm not in the comfort of my own home. Sometimes I'm in public. And so it's very difficult to make sure that the sound quality is at the pinnacle. And so how I overcome that, especially if I'm in public, is that I would put myself actually on mute sometimes. If I hear, loud leaf blowers, or if I hear some kid crying, that could be quite disruptive, right? And so we usually, at our exercise class, we have the habit of putting on music in the background. So even if I mute myself, the music should keep on playing. So the participants do not have any disruption in terms of sound, but they have the music to keep them motivated. So I have found that when participants have some background noise as well, and they go ahead and mute themselves, that helps tremendously with the participation of other exercise participants. So yeah.
Yeah, but I'm often there just to keep my hands on the mute button, just in case, I'm picking background noise from a participant, I just mute. I would usually tell them, hey, so-and-so, I'm picking some background noise, you can unmute yourself when that noise is gone.
Right.
So yeah, being in a team setting like this with Victoria allows me to just focus on the quality of the session, whereas she goes on and conduct the class, and I can focus on the technical aspect of the meeting. So.
And that's really helpful, I find. I applaud anyone that is doing exercise classes alone, because that's a lot of multitasking, and not being an octopus, it helps to have Ian around.
Very cool. Now, I'm gonna go back to one of my questions here. And what do you do to keep yourself motivated during COVID? Like, because all the things are saying, oh, you just stay home and just keep interaction to a minimum. Obviously you have been doing it differently. So what kept you motivated during this time?
I think two aspects. First is physically being around people who inspire me and motivate me. That includes our participants at RCD. I find that seeing you all working so hard to keep fit, to keep exercising every week, and some of participants mentioned, we're only doing upper body, and so later on in the day we're going to be doing some lower body exercises. That just that really pumps me up. To make sure that I'm on the right track physically, to keep myself healthy. That's a big part of what I believe mental health as well. I find that when I'm physically rested and healthy, my mental health is also well to do. The other aspect I find is reading, listening, watching things that make me feel driven. So for example, podcasts. For example, the Olympics. I am a big follower of athletes, and so when I see them waking up at 6 a.m., I'm not going to wake up at 6 a.m., but if I could even wake up a little bit earlier, push myself a little bit harder, and that transfers to academics, volunteering work, and just social interaction, making sure that I am being a positive presence, and trying to keep on top of that.
Thank you, Victoria. Look at the time. I told you 30 minutes go by really, really fast. So before we go, I just have this one last question for Victoria. Any advice for potential volunteers planning to join RCD?
I don't know if I'm qualified to give advice yet.
You've been here for a year. Of course you are. What do you think?
I think turning the question around, if I could give myself advice, my 1 year younger self, I think I would say, yes, be cautious, but be confident in what you know. I think every volunteer brings their own assets and their own skill sets. And I think it's great to be apprehensive at times or a little bit cautious, concerned. But I also think that as volunteers, it's important to be confident in yourself because participants can feel it, they can sense it. And if the volunteer is confident, supervisor is confident, participants are happy. And that's the end goal.
Very cool. And of course, you can always communicate with the supervisor or the coordinator in charge of the activity and just tell what you see as a problem, suggestion, communicate through that channel. I think that really helps in making the session more fulfilling and improvement overall. I think that's the really important aspect.
For sure.
Okay, I think we are out of time, folks. Thanks for joining us. Do we have any questions on chat? Okay, yeah, we better wrap up. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you for joining us today. And folks, I just want to make a quick announcement. In September, we're going to stop the Get Good stream for 1 month just to prepare for the in-classroom sessions that are happening in September. So we're just going to stop that for 1 month. The ShareNet will keep on going, 2 videos every week. So that will still be ongoing in September. So just a little heads up. All right, let's say goodbye, Victoria. Have a good one, guys. We'll be back next week.